Hey everyone, it's Simone Watson, and I was gonna do a writing update today, but I think I will wait a little bit to talk about writing and I will instead talk about what I've been reading. Now, since it's been 8 gazillion years since I did a reading update, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to go pretty far back in the archives of my brain, but it's gonna be okay. It's all gonna be fine. Also, another side note is this is like kind of an update on my hair. If you know, I do have natural hair. I have a fro, and it's been straightened recently. And so today I was like, why don't I put it in a ponytail? Well, this one piece kept trying to come out of the ponytail. So it was just like, I guess these are my bangs now. I guess that's just how, I guess that's what we're doing since, it's not all the same length, but it's like, I guess these are going to be my bangs. So I tried to kind of curl my bangs a little bit with no heat. And yeah, we'll just see. Yeah, like I said, it's been a really, really long time since I talked about reading. So here are some books. It's just gonna sound kind of funny to say it, but like the last time I really talked about what I was reading, I guess was like late 2020 because I reviewed Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I can link my review below. And then the next time I finished a book, I believe was in January 2021. And so I read um Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant. And it was so cute and lovely and amazing, and it was so great. I think I might have given it 5 stars. It's just super, super cute, but like also it's a book that has like it makes you think, and like it's one of very few, YA romances I've read with a black main character. So I'm like, I really want more I really want more YA romances with black main characters and also more YA, specifically rom-coms with characters of color. So I've got, see, I'm sorry, the hair is just it's gonna do what it wants to do, I guess. But yeah, I really want to read more like YA rom-coms with characters of color. So if y'all have any recommendations for that, I would love those. There is a sequel, kind of like sequel companion-y thing, called One True Loves that's been out since this January. And I still haven't read it. So that's just kind of, to be honest, that's kind of how things are going. So anyway, I think that one was probably 5 out of 5 stars. Then I forgot which order. I read Dream Country by Shannon Gibney, and I read Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I can't remember which one I read first. But Dream Country is, I'm gonna say, like 4 stars out of 5. Dream Country was so good, and it was one of those things where there's always this discomfort. Like when we talk about like privilege and like prejudice and things, we say like sometimes you have to sit in the discomfort knowing that like these are not easy situations to face. History is not always easy to read about or know about. And so Dream Country is about the country of Liberia. And basically, um, what happened is that during the time of slavery in the United States, there were some African Americans who wanted to go somewhere else in order to be away from not only from slavery but be away from all of the just ugly oppression that was going on. Because in Dream Country there are some characters who like they're technically free. They're African American, they're technically free, but like they they're free like on paper, but like they're still facing these like horribly ugly, you know, they're kind of like not really free basically. Um yeah. And so at that time there was this plan for a bunch of African Americans to go to West Africa and like establish a new country, and that became the country of Liberia. But um things just the thing is, you can't, I mean, this sounds like, I don't know a nice way to describe this, but basically, the land where they went to establish this country, which they were going to call Liberia because it's like liberty, like freedom, there were people who were already there. And that's kind of where these problems arise that came to the point of, the people who settled there causing a lot of problems. And um, unfortunately, there was genocide. And so it's a really eye-opening thing to read about and understand that, like, just because you've been mistreated doesn't mean that you are not capable of mistreating somebody else. And so you have to, like you have to be like, you have to just not do that, basically. I don't know, I'm not I feel weird. I feel like I'm not finding the right words here, but basically it was inexcusable, what happened. And it's just really sad. And you know myself, as someone who is African American, it was uncomfortable to read because it was like, you know we are not um incapable, we are not any less capable of, like, mistreating somebody else than someone else. And so we just have to, like, everyone has to take personal responsibility, and just like, you have to respect other people no matter what happens. um the other thing that made me sad about this book is, like, I wanted to think I wanted to think that African Americans could go over to West Africa, establish this settlement, live peacefully with the people who were there, and everything could be peaceful and happy and great. But the thing is, it's not just the fact of conflict and war and genocide that is ugly and sad in this book. The other thing that's sad is that, um, when these, like, African Americans, the characters that you're following, when they got over to Liberia, um, they had been enslaved, or they were either enslaved, or they were like really low paid servants where they were, um, working fields. And so they were like, oh, we can go over here and we can farm. And they went over there, and, like, this family that you're following, and they, like, had no idea how to farm. And, like, they had no idea how to farm that land, right? It was a completely different climate. And it made me sad because it it made me sad because, as an African American myself, I feel like there's often been this feeling of, like, well, we were taken away from, like, where our ancestors were taken away from where they came from. And so, like, so that was where we, I don't know. There's this feeling that, like, like, in the United States, there's this feeling that, like, we were never meant to belong here. And when I say meant to, I mean the people that built or, like, established the United States. They never really established it with us in mind and for us to belong. And so it's this weird dichotomy of, like, you're forced, or your ancestors were forced to be here, and yet always treated like they didn't belong. And so when these characters, with his family, goes on this boat and goes over to West Africa, it's almost like this thought in your head as the reader of, like, okay, well, if you're constantly feeling like you don't belong in the US, and even to the point of people saying, like, why don't you go back to Africa? And then you go to Africa, you're supposed to feel like you belong, right? Like, that's kind of the mentality as a reader that I experienced. But you realize that they have no idea how to exist in this completely different climate. And so it's like the literal embodiment of the phrase, you can't go back home, because it's like, now their ancestors have been taken away from potentially West Africa, potentially a similar area, but I'm holding a marker. I'm fidgeting. Um, so it's like, my ancestors were brought here and I don't belong here, but then when I go back to where my ancestors were, I don't belong there either. So it was just really sobering feeling of, like, oh my gosh, like, do African Americans belong anywhere? Like, so that was a sobering feeling. And I'm not saying that I don't belong anywhere. Like I belong where I am, but I'm just saying it was a complex thing. It's a complex thing to grapple with. And if if anything that I'm saying is like not I if anything that I'm saying about the way that the oppression took place, where African Americans oppressed the people that were native to that place, I really am sorry if I'm not saying it accurately or describing it well. It's like I just don't want to, like I don't know. I just don't want to. I don't want to mistake anything. But that book was really sobering. I think I might have given it 4 or 5 stars. There was like something about it, since it's been so long since I read it. It's like, oh no, there was something about it that I didn't quite um enjoy. I think it was maybe the ending or something. Oh, yeah, I think it. Oh, you know what? I remember. I remember the characters who went. So the African American characters who went from here to from the U.S. over to Liberia. The family that we were following, they were like they couldn't farm. They didn't know how to farm, and then they were like close to starvation. And then the book like skipped ahead a few months or something, and then they were like kind of sort of able to farm and like survive, and then it skipped ahead like multiple years, and now they were like basically, not basically, they were enslaving the people who were indigenous to the area, um which was really sad. My feeling was we didn't really get an understanding of how they got from point A to point B and point B to point C. It kind of skipped ahead, and the main thing was how did they get from being so unable to farm the land that they were about to starve to, oh, now something is growing. Like I felt like that would have been a good moment to see, was like when did the farming start actually working. So it was kind of a weird thing to skip over, I felt. Yeah, but that's it. But in general, it was a really good book. And then I read Leave the World Behind. Yeah, that might have been before Dream Country, but anyway, Leave the World Behind is, I could do a whole video on it, but I'm just going to talk about it here. Leave the World Behind is a it's like a literary sci-fi. It's like a literary sci-fi, kind of like a thriller suspense kind of thing. Yeah, it's like a literary sci-fi thriller, right? So this book did some stuff that I usually would not like at all. Things that I would be like sometimes writing off a book because it did these things. But the way the author did these things in this book was just mind blowing. Okay, so what's Leave the World Behind about? It's about these. This is one where when I talked about the white default, it was about the description of this book, but I'm not the description of the book. Maybe they've changed it by now. Whoever wrote the description of the book was reinforcing the white default with the description. But this book, the irony is that this book, which is by a black author, is the like antithesis of something that reinforces the white default. This book does not reinforce the white default. Okay, like it really doesn't. Excuse me. This book. Okay, so it's about a couple. They're like, I don't know, in their 30s or like 40s or something. I want to say their names are like Clay and Amanda. I hope I'm not messing this up, but Clay and Amanda, they are white and they have a son and a daughter. I think their son's 15 and their daughter's 13, and they go on this vacation to an Airbnb. And the so the essential thing that you are supposed to think is that they are like middle class people, and the mom and the dad are like a little bit, I don't know if burned out is the word, but they want to get away from their typical life, which is like, of course, that's why you take a vacation. But they go to this Airbnb, and you know things are going pretty well, and they're like, yeah, they're like in this vacation, they're in this like super vacationy mindset where they're like spending a lot of money and like doing all of this and like cooking on the grill and all that. And Then the homeowners show up. So the homeowners are named, the husband is George, I think. I forgot the wife's name. So it's a husband and wife. They are older, maybe like in their 60s, and they're black. And yeah, they're the owners of the Airbnb, but they've never seen, Clay and Amanda have never seen them. And so when the owners get there, they say, basically they say, like, because this Airbnb is like in the Hamptons, or not it's like somewhere that's like near New York City, but it's not New York City. It might be the Hamptons, it might not be. I don't remember. I'm sorry. But anyway, they came in and they were like, listen, we wanted to come here because we were driving back home to the city, and basically like all the lights are out in Manhattan. There are no lights. And Clay and Amanda are like, what? What are you talking about? So they were like, so the owners are like, can we the I believe the owners, their last name is Washington. So the Washingtons are like, can we stay here overnight? And Clay and Amanda are like, okay, sure. And so they stay there, and like no one can like get on the internet, and all these things are happening, and they're like slowly, like as like hours go by, they're slowly trying to figure out if everything's cool but the power went out, or if it's the apocalypse. And so that might sound really like, what? But it makes sense because this book explains that, like, if you're from Manhattan, or if you are used to, if you understand, like if you are very familiar with Manhattan, there are always lights on in Manhattan. So for like every light in Manhattan to be off would be super super um disconcerting. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Like unsettling, basically. And yeah, and so like more things are happening, and they're trying to figure out if it's the apocalypse. Um, yeah, I just love this book so much. Okay, I love this book so much because first of all, when these things start to happen, and you're like, is it the apocalypse? Like first you're like waiting for the answers. You're like, oh my gosh, this book is gonna give me some answers. Then you start to feel like, is the book more about the questions? Like, is it more about like the wondering? But then it's like, it's not even about the questions. It's about the effects that the questions have on the characters. So it's basically asking this question of like, if people really thought the world were ending, what would they do? Like, what would they do? How would they feel? How would they behave? Would they drink a bunch of margaritas, maybe? Like, would they just get really drunk? I mean, all these kind of questions. And that's very interesting. And the thing with this book is that, like I said, it is not reinforcing the white default. It is actually, the narrator of this book is like, the best way I can say it is like, the narrator is aware of, like, the narrator is aware of race, and the narrator is aware of privilege. And it's not so much like something that is like explicitly like, because the white people have privilege. Like, it's not something that's like explicit like that. But the narrator, like this omniscient narrator that exists, is like aware of like like, I don't know, certain things that are like basically this book does not treat whiteness as unmarked or neutral. Like the narrator is aware that certain things about, Clay and Amanda's lives and their upbringing, and like the way that their experience of moving through the world, the narrator is aware that that has to do with whiteness. So the narrator doesn't put it as like their way of moving through the world is the default and everyone else's is different. So it's very interesting. That's at least what I got. I would be curious to know like how other people feel about this book, but I know that like some people are probably mad at like the pacing slash plot slash the ending. It's not really giving you what you usually expect out of a sci-fi because it is very slow, and you're at some point you're like, I really want to know what's going on. I feel like this book is not trying to tell me like this, but I really want to know. I really want to know. But it really worked for me because I felt like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm just really interested in the kind of character study that's being done. And the prose is awesome. The prose is so good. My one kind of take it or leave it part about the prose is that there was like random, like the prose would have like random sexual reference, like that was a little bit weird. Like it would be talking about something totally different, and there would be like a sexual metaphor or something, and it was a little bit weird because it was like, okay, I mean, why? And there was like one specific part where there was like a little bit of detail that I felt didn't need to be there. It was something that was, yeah, it was just a little bit too detailed about something. It's not like a sex scene or anything, but it's just like a little bit uncomfortable. There was like one sentence where I was like, they really could have just edited that sentence out. Like, yeah, that was a little much, but otherwise, yeah, man, like this book, this book is so good, I think the thing that it was trying to do, like, because I think it's gonna be like, I think it's polarizing, and but like when you get to the end, when you're done reading it, like for me, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I know what the author was trying to accomplish with that whole story, including the end, and I feel like it was brilliant. Like I feel like I know what the story was trying to say, and you thought that what it was trying to say was going to be more actiony and more like boom, 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 apocalypse, boom, or some people gonna, whatever. But like the slow move of the action all like played into what the book was ultimately trying to tell you, and I felt like it was just beautiful and amazing. And so yeah, I could talk about this all day, but I'm just gonna leave it there for now, and yeah, we'll see. Yeah, so for the rest of last year, so that was like January, and I finished 3 books. I don't know if I finished any other books in 2021, which is like so sad. Like, what? Um, I should probably check Goodreads, but I don't remember finishing any other books. It's just wait, no, I did. Okay, whoo, okay, whoo. I'm very happy to report I did finish two other books later in the year. So I read what's it called? Survive the Night by Riley Sager. And then I immediately picked up another thriller, which was Not a Happy Family by Sherry Lepena. So Survive the Night is one that I'm gonna have to do a whole video about. And that's because I gave Survive the Night 3 stars. That I gave it 3 stars because my feeling at the end of the book was this was a really enjoyable story that didn't make any sense. So it was like, I can't give it like 2 or 1 star because I had fun reading it. I enjoyed the reading experience, so that's worth 3 stars. But the actual logic of this story doesn't really make sense. And so I feel like that's gonna need its own video. This was this there was an odd phenomenon in this story where there are different types of plot twists, and you want to have plot twists that are like, oh, now I get why that thing happened earlier. This book did the opposite. There were plot twists that were like, so if that was how stuff was, why did such and such a thing do that earlier? Like now that I've gotten to the plot twist, the earlier stuff makes less sense, which was so odd because it's just like, what? So that was a problem. Also, with Survive the Night, I feel like Survive the Night accidentally sends the wrong. I don't want to say wrong because that sounds like. It accidentally sends a message to people, and maybe in particular women, that I don't think is what the author intended to send. And I think the author was trying to do something that was like empowering to women, but in my view, it was it in my view it didn't really work logically, and in my view the story was accidentally saying something else. I'm saying accidentally because I feel like the author was like, yeah, but then I'm like, wait, when you think about this. So so the basic, like a small bit of like Survive the Night is, I feel like the it's a book about this girl who like agrees to ride home from college with a stranger, and like they're supposed to go like overnight. I guess they're going from New Jersey to Ohio or Ohio to New Jersey, one of those. And like they're in the car overnight, and basically she starts to think that he's a serial killer, and that's kind of the like suspensey part of it. And so yeah, my issue. Well, no, I think I'll have to talk about this in another in its own video. But it was just like I felt like when it was trying to be empowering to women, I felt like there was a little bit of a that wasn't how it didn't quite work for me. It didn't quite land for me as far as like what is this book actually saying. So I'll just make another video specifically to talk about that book. And then I read Not a Happy Family by Sherry Lepena. This one I think is 4 or 5 stars for me. I don't really remember. The only reason this book would potentially not be 5 stars is it was almost like too straightforward for a thriller. Like it wasn't that twisty. Well, but I shouldn't say too straightforward because maybe that's a vibe. Like maybe some thrillers are supposed to be really straightforward, but it felt like oh, it just doesn't really have a lot of twists. So that was kind of how it was, and then but I guess maybe that's a matter of opinion as far as like maybe there are twists, but they're just small. Um, However, what I appreciate about the book Not a Happy Family is it talks about emotional abuse, like parental emotional abuse, because it's about this husband and wife who get murdered, and then like they have 3 kids, they have 3 adult kids, and their adult kids are like under investigation, and like it's trying to make you think like who did it, you know? And yeah, there was like the book, you know, it was mentioned that the dad had been emotionally abusive, at least to the son, maybe to all 3 kids, and I appreciated that this book mentioned emotional abuse because I don't know if like it just seems like I don't know if I've seen that be mentioned a whole lot. And so that was very interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah. So the book was it was pretty good. I'm gonna say 4 stars. I don't remember what I said on Goodreads. I'm just gonna say 4 stars, and we're gonna leave it there. I'm not saying we're gonna leave it there, but we're gonna yeah we're gonna. I didn't mean to say that in a way that's like we're just gonna. I didn't mean to say anyway. The point is I'm just gonna say 4 stars for now. And then what did I read after that? I don't think I finished another book until like January of this year. January or February. I finished no, I didn't finish that book. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you. I got like 90% of the way through this book called um I think it's called The Perfect Escape by Leah Conan. Um and then I think I like had to return it to the library or something. So it was an audiobook. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and finish that soon. And then I can like give you my thoughts on that. Oh, and most recently, I read Crank by Ellen Hopkins. So I was very glad to be reading, you know, to be reading a book because at this point, like I said, like I haven't been finishing a lot of books recently. I was like, oh. So finally, I was like, I'll read Crank because it is free on rivetedlit.com, which is the like Simon and Schuster teen website. And I guess I read it last week. I think I read it in less than 24 hours, which was surprising because I was at my sister's house and I was like busy and I was visiting with family and helping with my nephew and all this, and um I still managed to finish this book, so that was cool. What do I think about Crank? It was a really good book. It's hard to even give a star rating to that book. Yeah, I mean it was I think that I had previously avoided it because I was like, what if it's too sad? But then I was like, this day I was like, well, I read Heroine by Mindy McGinnis, and that was sad, but it was also like it was sad, but I was able to like handle it, if that makes sense. I was like, okay. And so Crank was yeah, it was sad, but I was able to handle it. I think I think it's it's tough. Yeah. It's just really hard to get it's really hard to give it a star rating for real. Like I felt like it was really well written. I liked how sometimes the it was written in verse, and so sometimes the author would use like shapes, like she would put the words in a certain shape, and that would be really cool. Um and I think it is interesting, like with like verse novels, how sometimes you don't get a ton as far as like scene setting. And so a lot of it is plot and feelings and stuff like that. And that's what this book gave you. And yeah, it was just really good. It was really emotionally moving. And yeah, I guess I'm just gonna say wow. So that was a wow type of book. Yeah, four or five. I don't know. I don't know how many stars I would give it. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. So what I'm hoping is that I didn't completely forget something. There was a book that I started at some point and didn't finish. That might have been in 2021. I do not remember the name of it, but I will try to do another reading update soon. And maybe before that time, I can just finish the book oh, yeah, one last thing. I did read Atomic Habits. Sorry. So that other book that I didn't finish, it's a thriller. The one I didn't finish is a thriller about this like Irish guy and his girlfriend went missing like 7 years ago. And then like the girlfriend's name is Layla. Like I'm gonna remember the name of the book, or either I'm gonna remember it or I'm gonna look it up and find it somewhere. Because I think it's by no, I don't know who it's by. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm gonna find out and probably put it in the description, and then I'll try to finish that book soon, maybe, possibly, and then update you. Or if I decide not to finish it, I'll just update you about that in my next reading update. But anyway, I did read Atomic Habits sometime in 2021, and that's by James Clear, and that's a book that I had heard mentioned a lot on YouTube videos about productivity, and it's amazing. It's a really great book, and I want to read it again because sorry, my glasses are kind of broken and I kind of semi-fixed them. So, it's a really great book. I want to read it again because it really gives you this great framework for building habits that you want to build and breaking habits that you want to break. It's just amazing. If you wanted me to talk, make a video to talk more about Atomic Habits and like what I've learned from that book, let me know and I'll make a video like that. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, lastly, I'm sorry. Please let me know what y'all have been reading recently. Okay, really, really this time. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon. Bye.